Hi, my name's Judy Harbin. I'm the owner of Focus Yoga Studio in Brookfield. I like to start class by asking my students what they would like to work on that day, what sort of conditions that they're bringing into class. And tight hips comes up pretty frequently. So we always go on to include some hip openers. But some days you can't get into class and you still have tight hips. So I put together a very short sequence of simple hip openers here. Now remember, a warm muscle is going to be more receptive to opening and stretching, much more receptive than a cold muscle. So even though I've done a few warm-ups here, simple warm-ups in this sequence, if you can walk a little or move a little in the hips before you practice, all the better. Speaking of walking and movement, if you power walk, if you run, cycle, cross-country ski, whatever your sport is, those things can contribute to tight hips. So always include hip openers in your cool down after you practice. Now, if anything doesn't feel right, stop. Come into the studio, ask your instructor. There's a philosophy in yoga and Ayurveda that our bodies are microcosms, small versions of the macrocosm, the universe. So it's very important for us to spend time outdoors in nature, outdoors in the macrocosm. So maybe you're in a place right now where that's difficult. I chose to film this outside so that you can get maybe a little nature in that way. Hopefully this sequence will feed your spirit as well as open your hips. So let's get started.
Come into tabletop position with your wrists under your shoulders, your knees under your hips, and your low belly drawn up to support your low back. Extend your left leg straight back, lift it, and then bend the knees so the sole of the foot faces the sky. As you exhale, round your spine, bringing your knee toward your nose. And inhale, lift your foot and lift your gaze into a back bend. Exhale, round. Inhale, lift. Exhale, round. Inhale, lift. Press the heart forward and shoulders back. Exhale, round. And one last time, lift. And now, move your right arm just a little bit to the right for stability. Open your knee out to the side and draw large circles with your knee to open up the hip, warm up the hip. Switch direction. And then extend the leg back again and lower your knee back down into tabletop. Let's take that to the other side. Low belly is strong. Extend your right leg back. Lift it, bend the knee. And as you exhale, round the spine into cat tilt, knee to nose. Inhale, lift the foot and lift the gaze. Exhale, round. Inhale, lift, pressing your heart forward and shoulders back. Exhale, round. Inhale, lift. One more time. Exhale, round. Inhale, lift. Come back to neutral and open your knee out to the side. Move your left hand a little to the left for stability. Draw large circles. And then switch direction. Opening up the hip, really explore the opening of the hip. And then extend your leg back and lower your knee. Come back into tabletop. Move your hands about 6-8 inches forward. Curl your toes under and lift into downward facing dog. Separate your feet to the outer edges of your mat. And as you exhale, bend your knees deeply so your shins come parallel to the mat. Inhale, lift the hips, straightening the knees. And exhale, bend. Inhale, lift. And exhale, bend into a deep squat. Inhale, lift. And then soften your knees. Walk your feet forward to your hands. Bring your hands to your shins. Inhale, lengthen the spine, slide the hands up to the hips, and exhale all the way to standing. Come into Tadasana at the front of your mat. Inhale, arms reach to the sky, and exhale, soften your knees, plant your hands, and step your left leg way back into a high lunge. Lower your knee in the top of your foot. Now, if this bothers your knee, lift your knee, fold your mat over on the edge, and then place your knee on that double mat. Now I'm on grass, so that's nice and soft, so I'm just going to keep my knee on my mat and take my hands to my right knee. Now straighten the right knee a little bit. Draw your tailbone down, lift your low belly up, and then re-enter this stretch, bending the right knee again. This is going to really target the hip flexor. So continue to draw your tailbone down, low belly in and up, and feel the lengthening in the front of the left thigh. You'll feel this stretch all the way from the hip to the knee. Keep the shoulders relaxed, forehead relaxed. Then lower your hands to the mat. Lift your left knee, curling your toe under, and draw large circles with your hips. These nice large circles like a massage here. Now if the ground seems a little too far away, you can use blocks underneath your hands. And then circle the hips to the other direction. Then move both of your hands to the inside of your right leg. Drop your right knee over to the right, lifting the inside edge of the foot, and get a deeper opening in the hip. If this is uncomfortable for your back leg, you can lower your left knee to the mat as well. Bring your hands back to the ground on either side of the feet and step your left foot forward. Inhale, lengthen the spine, and exhale, bend your knees and step your right leg way back in space. Once again, lower your right knee to the floor. You can fold your mat over. Bring both hands to your left knee. Straighten your left knee just a little bit. Tuck your tailbone down, lift your low belly up, and then rebend the left knee, re-entering the stretch. Just pause and breathe here. Again, you'll feel this stretch underneath the right hip, in that hip flexor and maybe all the way down the quadricep to the knee. Keep your shoulders relaxed, don't hunch, and relax your forehead and your jaw. Once again, lower your hands to your mat, curl your right toe under and lift your knee, and begin to draw those large, luxurious circles with your hips. And then switch direction. Recenter and bring both hands to the inside of the left foot and open the knee out to the side, getting deep inside the hip. Then lower your foot back to the floor completely and step your right foot forward into a forward fold. Inhale, lengthen your spine, and exhale, lift all the way up to standing. Now we're going to turn and work along the long edge of our mat, so bring any blocks with you and place them in front of you. Stand in the center of the mat and then separate your feet, 4.5 feet. When you open your arms out to the side, your wrists will be right underneath the outer edges of your feet. Now, outer edges of the feet are parallel with the outer edges of the mat. Place your hands on your hips. Inhale, lift your heart, and exhale, fold forward and place your hands on your blocks or on the floor. Keep your spine long here. Now again, slightly separate your heels so your feet feel a little pigeon-toed. Bring your weight forward into the balls of your feet, but press your heels down as well. This will align your hips over your heels. You can lower your blocks if you feel like you can do this with a long spine. And you can even take your hands down to the floor. Right now, your hands are still underneath your shoulders, so think about making a long tabletop with your spine. If you're very, very flexible, you can begin to walk your hands back toward your feet a little bit. Again, think about lifting the tailbone and keeping the spine long. As you bend your elbows, bend them back behind you, pointing your elbows towards the space behind you. Eventually, you may be able to bring your hands in line with your feet as though you're on a balance beam, hinging forward from the hips with a long spine so that the crown of your head is pointing towards the floor. Now, that may not happen today or maybe ever, but it's a nice visual to keep in mind to help us think about lifting the tailbone and keeping the spine long. Now begin to walk your hands forward back underneath your shoulders once again, and slightly turn your toes outward. Bend your left knee so that it aligns right over the center of your foot. Move your hands slightly to the left and feel a deep stretch in your right inner thigh. Continue to press the outer edge of your right foot down, lifting the inner ankle slightly so that your arch doesn't collapse. If this is challenging to the ankles, you can very slightly move your feet closer together. Then let's take this over to the right. Bending the right knee, walking the hands to the right, and straightening the left. Take a few deep breaths here, opening up the left inner thigh. And then come back to center, walking the hands underneath the shoulders once again. Begin to heel toe your feet until they're slightly more than hip distance apart with your toes facing outward. Then bring your hips down toward your heels into a squat. Ideally, we can continue to press the heels into the mat, but if they lift, roll up a blanket, a firm blanket, or a mat and place it underneath the heels so you have something firm to press into. Bring your elbows to your inner knees, press them back, shoulders down, heart open, and take deep breaths into the pelvis and into the belly. Make any foot adjustments you need to so you feel comfortable and so that your arches, of course, remain lifted. One more deep breath. As you exhale, lower your hands and come seated. Now, turn to face the front, the short edge of your mat. Take a block with you. Sitting on your right hip, open your knees so it's 90 degrees. Your shin will align with the front of your mat, your thigh with the right long edge of your mat, and the sole of your foot with the left long edge of your mat. Your left leg will extend back behind you comfortably, the inner knee resting on the mat. Tripod your hands in front of you. Inhale, lift your heart, and as you exhale, begin to fold forward, lengthen forward. Think belly to thigh. You can take a block and place it under your forehead. Again, as you inhale, think about lengthening forward over your right thigh. As you exhale, soften into this pose. You should be feeling an opening on the right side, the outside of your right hip. If not, take your left hand to your left hip and very gently draw it down toward the earth. It won't move far, but this hopefully will increase the intensity. You should feel a nice opening in the outside of the right hip. Just soften and breathe here. This is a variation on pigeon pose. Imagine breathing deep into the pelvis, into the belly. Then, on your next inhalation, slowly lift up. Bring your left leg forward, and we're going to repeat this to the other side. So roll onto your left hip. Bring your right leg behind you, the inner knee just resting comfortably on the mat. Open your left knee so that your shin is parallel to the front of the mat. Your thigh is parallel to the left long edge of the mat. Flex your foot. And then inhale, lift your heart, and exhale, walk forward. Lengthen your spine forward. Again, bring a block underneath your forehead. Imagine keeping the spine long as you take deep breaths all the way into the belly, into the pelvis. And as you exhale, soften. Imagine relaxing and releasing the left hip. And once again, you can take your right hand to your right hip and gently draw it down if you need that in order to increase the intensity. few more breaths here. And then inhale and lift your upper body. Shift weight onto your left hip. Draw your right leg forward and come into an easy cross-legged position. Just bring your hands to your knees, roll your shoulders back, and sit tall and close your eyes for a moment. Take a few slow, deep breaths and release tension not only in your hips, but in your shoulders and forehead and jaw. Enjoy this feeling of balance and quiet, and set an intention for the rest of your day. Bring your palms together at the heart. Give yourself a deep inner bow for attending to your practice. I thank you for sharing your effort and energy with me. Namaste.